Hi guys, Diane here. I was actually just thinking about a client that I finished up a project for earlier this week, and I was thinking about our initial discussions where he mentioned, that his major pain point was that balls were being dropped left and right within his business. His support team has some outline processes, and that they were working and doing things, but there were still a lot of balls that were being dropped, and onboarding and delivery for one really large client in particular was a mess. Important clients were not getting, the products that they were being promised, and their overall experience was just not up to standard. He was really frustrated with his team members. No one was taking ownership of the situation, and his managers would sometimes disappear and be out of contact with him for days at a time. And he just did not have the time to run around and, chase them down to find out what was going on. He was mostly pushing forward, but after his large client, one of his largest clients, actually decided to terminate a contract, that's when he said, "Hey, this cannot continue to go on." And that's when we started to work together. And he wanted to fix the situation, and that's when he called me in. And I realized that this situation is pretty common, right? There's a lot of situations like this within our own businesses where, things kind of go off the rails, where we lose a client, we lose a contract because things in our business are not as tight as they should be. And when I come across situations like this, the first thing I do is try to trace where the team went off the rails, right? Was it the process that they were following? Was that flawed? Did they just not know what they were responsible for, what they were supposed to be doing? Or were they not a good fit for this job in general? In my experience, it's more commonly a combination of the first two issues, where the process is really flawed, it's not well documented, and they also don't know what they're responsible for, what the expectation is, and what the standards are, right? More often than not, the people want to do a good job for you. And a lot of recent HR studies have actually even said that, issues within a business that are that stem from actual employees is only the cause of about 5% of team issues. So you have to think about that another other 95% of the time as when, okay, where are we going off the tracks? There are other things that influence how well your team does because they generally do want to do a good job for you. So my first step is to really take a step back and try and find out where they're going off the rails. Because you know what? As business owners, this is not your fault. We're busy, we're all busy, and we're guilty of doing a little bit of a drive-by delegation, including me. And with so many processes and so many things happening in our business, it's really easy for us to say lump two or three different steps into a single procedural step that we actually document. And that creates a lot of confusion for our team. It's also really not ingrained in us to set out clearly what the expectation is. I mean, really define it. A lot of us think that, oh, my expectations are that you perform really well, but that's not actually a good expectation because it doesn't give the other person, really objective, clearly outlined ways to measure their performance. Their standard for, well, I did perform really well versus your standard for performing really well might be very different. And it's in that uncertainty where we see a lot of processes fail and where we lose clients and where balls get dropped and where there's a lot of frustration within our businesses. So think back to how much of the process was completed. If you have a process that you were following to get those products to your client, how much of it was delivered? What were the steps that they went through at each step? Was it to standard? Was it not to standard? Those are all things that you need to outline so that you can figure out where you need to add steps, where you need to add more guidelines, where you need to remove steps, or to just where you just in general, maybe you forgot to outline the whole thing in general and you're just kind of sending them emails of like, oh, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. Well, in that case, go back to the emails that you sent and figure out, did I give you the information that you really needed? And then what do I need to do to put this information in a standardized format so I can just send it to you constantly, right? So that's the first step. If you've had kind of these major issues within your business where you're not really satisfied with the work that your team is doing. The second thing that you need to do is actually to address the issue with your team, update them on what's happened and reset the whole process with them. A lot of times when we go into these situations, we don't say anything. The team knows something bad has happened. They know that you're not happy with them and they kind of walk on eggshells for a while. And that builds a sense of like, oh, it's not safe to ask, or it's not safe to kind of question what's going on. And that's not a good collaborative environment because your team actually has a lot of vital data for you about the processes that they're executing. For example, a lot of processes that we outline, like say, oh, I think that when I deliver this to a customer, it's just this one thing and it can happen instantaneously, right? I can create the label and it will instantaneously be printed and I can ship it within minutes. Well, in actuality, with your team, that might not be the case. They might be running into issues that you don't even know about. So ask them, what has been going on? Like, where are the places within this process that we can improve? Does this process actually work, right? Give them a chance to give you that vital data so that A, you can get on a good, even playing field with your team and open up the lines of communication. And also, you can take that vital data from them so you can tighten up your processes and your own system so that it doesn't happen again in your business, so that the standard is set, the process behind it is solid and strong and clear, and your team knows that this is the new standard and this is the new process. That is how you catastrophe proof your business and you prevent things like this from happening again in the future. How you prevent, losing clients, how you prevent projects from going sideways, how you prevent balls being dropped. And that's what you're looking for, then drop me a line. Let me know. I'm happy to talk about how we can catastrophe proof your business. All right. So until next time, this is Diane. Bye.